Hi, I'm Miki. I'm the founder of Tushy and Thinx and the author of Do Cool Shit and Disruptor.
Hi, I'm Radha Agrawal. I am the founder of Daybreaker and author of Belong. And, I'm all about getting people to dance and to really experience collective joy.
In this episode of Brave Talks, I chat with Miki and Radha Agrawal about the path to joy through authenticity. Why do we avoid our feelings, and why do we focus on saving face when our true selves have so much more to bring to the table? Miki is the founder of Thinx and Tushy, a speaker and the author of 2 books, Do Cool Shit and Disrupt Her. Radha is an entrepreneur, speaker, author, and the founder of Daybreaker, the global morning dance, music, and wellness movement with a community of almost 500,000 people. Well, welcome to Brave Talks. It's so nice to have you both on the show. And we're here to talk about joy, which is something that, I thought I had a pretty good idea about joy. And then I picked up your books and started rereading them. And then I picked up the Book of Joy again, which is like my Bible. And I have so many things underlined. And I was meditating yesterday, and the one line that came to me was, "How deep is your sorrow? How great is your joy?" And I wanted to start off by, asking you that question. How deep is your sorrow? How great is your joy?
Yeah. I think that joy lives in this beautiful sort of understanding that it's not just the kind of the moments in your life that are positive, that real joy lives in the seeing of moments of struggle and suffering, to then be able to kind of pendulum to the other side. And I think so often we try to compartmentalize sorrow and joy, but if we can begin to see moments of sorrow through the lens of joy as like, wow, this is really cool that I get to experience a feeling as sad as this, or a depth of anger or betrayal or whatever it is, as sad as this, and what a joyous life experience to be able to be there. And to the other side of it, euphoric joy, when you actually experience the most euphoric joy, awe, really, if you think about what awe is, it actually comes from overcoming fear, overcoming some moment of fear to then get to the other side of awe and joy. So on either side of sorrow and joy, there's the opposite experience, right? And I think that's the world that I think we all want to play in.
What was the sorrow that really pushed you into this, momentum of joy, or this emotion of joy, and making it so important for you to live with?
Yeah, I mean, I think emotions are visitors. I don't think that they're like, I don't, everything is fleeting. Joy and sorrow are hand in hand. It's like you watch the movie Inside Out, where there's joy and sadness and anger and, disgust. And these emotions are just, they're visitors. They come and they go. Like when you think about trees, that are rooted in the earth, and there's storms that come and they rustle the tree leaves, and then there's the sun shines, and there's just rain, and then there's, and things just come and go. And, it's the goal is to just be in flow with all of them. The hardship comes when there's resistance of any of those emotions. Joy and sorrow is like literally like breathing in and out. It's just part of life.
Did you have any of that teaching when you were growing up together, or is this something that you've learned as you've aged?
I think I've learned this as I've aged, for sure. I think us growing up in an Indian Japanese household, I think emotion is very kind of not looked at. And I think so many Asians who are listening probably know the exact same thing. And same thing in strict Catholic households or whatever, like, kind of God-fearing households. There is a level of, emotionality that is missing, I think. And so I think we would kind of sort of, I think I see so many of my friends' parents, so many of my friends, just, and including us for the longest time, just stuff our feelings under a rug. and pretend everything's okay. And so I think that, yeah, we definitely supported each other, I think, in going deeper in our emotional bandwidth and wanting to really suck the marrow out of life.
Was there a moment where you two came together, like, that you can remember, where you were like, "Okay, let's, like, break the cycle and let's go deep on this one"?
The thing that I feel so grateful for is the fact that I had, like, my sister and I, we always talk about how we always had someone to go and sit in the lunchroom, with. And we always had somebody to laugh at our jokes and to like knee slap at the dumb things that we're saying. Or when one of us has an idea, we basically are like, that's the best idea I've ever heard in my entire life. Oh my God, you have to do it. Like, how could I be your number one fan when you do it? And I think like having someone who's constantly championing your ideas and thoughts and being like the first to clap for you, um, gives us a level of like confidence and like, oh, I can do this. I think, right, yeah. Oh my God, you can do it. Oh yeah, you can. I can't, right? And it's sort of like this level of I think like we call a boom spiral, like a positive upward spiral of giving each other our energy of like, yes. Oftentimes a lot of people are like, no, I don't think it's a good idea. Just go be a doctor. No, that's a dumb idea. Go to morning dance parties. It's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. Like, instead it's like, oh my God, I'll go to that every day. I'll be your number one fan. I'll buy every ticket. Oh my God, it's the best thing ever. Being there for each other in a way that's like super championy, I think has been incredible for our growth in our businesses and our lives.
Yeah, and I think in relationships, if you can really take on the empathetic joy for the other person's wins. I actually had a call with my friend a couple weeks ago. She's one of my dear friends, and I would call her and I would say, "Hey, I had this exciting win that happened today," and I would just see kind of this pretend look of joy for me on her face, but I could just see, I know her so well, that it was a fake joy. So I finally had the courage to confront her, or not confront, but just to open up the conversation and say, hey, I notice that whenever you share with me anything that's happening with you, I'm always like, I literally feel like it's my own victory. But when I often share with you some of my ideas, it looks like a fake joy, or like you're pretending to be happy for me, but I can see envy or jealousy or something underneath. So we talked about it, and it's the opposite of what I have with my sister, right? We talked about it, and she started crying immediately, and then again, it takes an evolved person who's doing work on themselves also to not get defensive and say, I don't be your friend anymore, screw you. Or she was just like, she started crying and she said, you're right. I am going through it financially right now. I don't even know how to pay my rent next month. So when I hear you're closing all these exciting deals right now, I'm wanting to be happy for you, but I'm feeling so badly about myself in the process that I have a hard time really showing up for you the way I want to. So I'm faking it because inside I'm feeling so insecure. So then I had so much compassion for her with the way that she shared, but it's just like this type of, again, open, vulnerable sharing that brings us closer together, and open, authentic, celebratory attitude that also makes life way more fun. It's almost like, whoa, I get to celebrate my own victories. But then, like, if I feel the same amount of joy for my friends and family, like that just exponentially increases my joy. So why wouldn't I do that?
Absolutely. It makes me think about, like, and question, what's the downside of being so joyful and cheery and empathetic and excited for other people? Like, so often are we so quick to shoot back like, it's probably not going to work, or like, gotta go get another idea, or like, keep refining, right? Like, what's the downside?
Well, yeah, I mean, we do definitely share our truth. We're not like, yo, yeah, that's a great idea. Go do it. It's coming from total authenticity, or authentic, like a place of like, oh my God, I want that. Like, I want to wake up and dance without a bunch of gross drunk people slobbering all over us. And it's sort of like there's something that that that's really true about being authentic versus not being authentic when it comes to the celebration of ideas or celebration of others. And I also think it's important to be authentic when you don't like an idea, or you don't think it's good. I mean, even just before this call, I had a chat with my product design team at Tushy, and we had some difference in opinions, and that's totally fine to do. And but I will state, I don't think that's going to necessarily work for these reasons. And I'm not going to just, yes, this is amazing, I think you're awesome, just because I'm trying to be nice and be pleasant. Like we also we're just, our heart is on our sleeve, for better or for worse. And I think that's the whole point of emotionality. You let an emotion in, and you're like, oh, that didn't feel right, I'm going to share that. That made me feel joyful, I'm going to share that. That made me feel uncomfortable, I'm going to share that. And I think it's in the acceptance and willingness and courage to be 100% authentic that actually makes people, or makes me trust myself the most.
Yeah, like when you're like, oh, I really don't like this person, and you kind of say these things, and then they show up, and you're like, hi, like you just feel icky, you know? So why not just tell them how you feel and just clear it up and then move on? Again, I'm going through a business breakup with someone right now, and we worked together for 3 years every day talking on the phone. And one day she just decided she was so scared, and so envious of she's just starting. She's a young entrepreneur, and so envious of I guess where we are in our lives, that she just called me up one day on FaceTime, started crying, and said, I racked up all this debt. I drained the bank account, and there's nothing left. And I just said, wow, okay, let's talk about it. Let's meet up and talk about it. And she refused to. And so we've been dealing with lawyers ever since, like 3 years of relationship, down to lawyers talking to each other. And that's not relationship, right? Like relationship requires courage. And if this is a season on relationships require courage to face each other, to clear any inauthentic or negative channels, so that you can actually like live a life that is free from all the pockmarks of like trauma and pain and betrayal. And I mean, just like life becomes so much more easy if you just kind of have the courage to face the person and say, yo, I have some problems with you. Let's talk it through, and then let's move on.
And I think people, because we live so much behind our screens, people can talk shit and write negative comments like on behind a screen. But when it comes to having courageous, crucial conversations in person, there's a lot of chickening out that happens because it's hard to do, and people, like, it's confronting, and it's but I think on the other side of that is more joy, and is more truth, and is more like people feel like there's a trust in knowing that, like, even if it was hard feedback or a hard conversation, I feel like I know what you're feeling, and I feel that there's truth in that, and that feels good. In the moment it might be hard, in the moment it might be challenging, but I think it works out much better than just being completely inauthentic and trying to save face.
I think we're culturally conditioned to clam up or whatever it is when we're faced with having these authentic conversations, and then we go to school that does the same. It perpetuates the same issues where we can't be unique, and we can't have these conversations. We're all kind of homogenized into this process of thinking that we just need to be that good girl and get that good grade and like not upset anyone and fit right into that puzzle. um and so it's a, a huge task, an undertaking that will take time for us to, since we're all mothers, to continue that kind of warpath of like teaching our children that they too can have these conversations, and that it's normal and it's okay, and it might be hard but it's worth it, and joy is on the other side, and that's better than feeling like shit and showing up like with a poker face all the time.
That's right, exactly. And it's literally what I'm doing a course right now on joy and belonging, and as I'm workshopping what each what each day's class is going to look like, one of the things that we talk about is this idea of just, yeah, like of recognizing that on the other side of fear is awe and joy, and on the other side of the stress of, what if I create an event and no one shows up? Right? What if I throw a dance party and I throw the invitation out there to dance at 6 a.m. and no one shows up? Then no one would ever invite anyone to anything. It always requires one person or a group of people who are going to be courageous enough to stick their neck out and see, will you come to my thing and buy a ticket to my thing? And it's so easy to then criticize and say, oh, it wasn't that great, or, I didn't really love the experience. I could have done this and that, and be sort of backseat drivers around it when they don't realize that there's hundreds of people that went into creating that experience in the first place for your enjoyment. And to receive this type of cancel culture style or like negativity from the get go versus a kind gratitude for what it took to create an event in the first place, like those are the things that people need more coaching around, I think, in general.
And then I'll also add just the thought around, like, we live in a world, we have lived in a world where one of the biggest concerns for people is saving face. It's like, what will people think if I did this? What will people think if I failed? What will people think if I made this comment? What will people think if I gave tough feedback? What will people think if? And it's this nonstop. What will people think? Will people like me if I'm stern? Will people like me if I'm truthful? Will people like me if I'm, you know, if I fail, if I don't, if I'm not perfect? And that's like, I think that's that piece of, checking in with myself over and over again, is, was that coming from my authentic truth? Is that coming from a place of like who I really want to be and what I really want to share, and what my stance is on that? And it's not about saving face and being liked. There's that saying, like, I would much rather be respected than liked. I think if we just get rid of this idea of saving face, just focus on asking ourselves, like, what does light us up? What does bring us joy to talk about? Like, what does make me feel clear? I think that's just so much more inspiring.
Yeah. I feel like authenticity, what you're saying is almost like authenticity is like your gateway to joy in a way. It's your gateway to freedom and your true self.
Yeah, like, for example, like, one of the kind of back and forths we're having right now, just now, with my team, was a conversation around, like, we don't think it's a good idea to put the words tushy on our outer packaging of our boxes, because it might turn people off. We want to be discreet. And I'm just like, you want to be discreet by not putting our logo and our brand name on our outer, and not, and losing and so, and then there was this, like, kind of, a little bit of a standoff around, like, do we want to save face with our customers, or do we want to actually break a taboo and stand for something? And so there's this, like, constant battle of, like, what do we look like in society? What does society think about us? How do we save face over and over again versus how do we break through? How do we inspire others? How do we make people actually be so surprised and delighted, and just like, oh, this is different and new. Let me look at that instead. It's like this, it's a constant battle against the status quo. I feel like, oftentimes the bad guy in these calls and these meetings, because I have to be effusive in saying, no, we need to think about challenging the status quo and changing culture, and actually speaking the things in order to actually change them versus saving face. Why are we saving face? To who are we saving face? How can we challenge that where we actually eliminate shame altogether?
Absolutely. When you started having conversations, I mean, even at the end of, I think it was Disruptor, you talked about, like, dare I go here? Let's talk about polygamy, possibly. Was that at the end of Disruptor?
Yeah, I mean, not polygamy, polyamory.
Polyamory.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And just even talking about it. I mean, come on. Like, even if it's something you choose, if it's something you don't choose, whatever it is, like, it's just a conversation. And we don't have to have shame around, conversation and people's choices. And I just thought it was really brave of you to include that. And I felt like it was just so freeing and liberating on so many levels to know that there are other women talking about things that require breaking through this patriarchal like conditioning and, like men can do it. Why can't women do it? I don't know what is in your DNA, like both of your DNA, but I think it's pretty incredible that you're both able to have this huge amount of bravery and I don't know if shamelessness is the right word, but to acknowledge shame and to say, I see you, thank you, move aside. I'm like continuing because, again, authenticity. And like that is your war path to joy.
So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna just sort of. I think most people live in their trauma story. Most people live in their stories of their past that hurt them, and we're pathologizing and celebrating in some ways our mental health issues and our, it's like it's becoming out of hand how many of us are leaning on our mental health issues to stay in this state of complacency and fear and limiting beliefs and old stories that are completely holding millions of people back. And so, really, what I'm interested in exploring is the next level. So, from this trauma story, we do tons of work on ourselves, personal development, coaching, therapy, you name it, all the things. And we get to a place where we're okay. I'm good. I'm no longer living my trauma story. I'm now good. I'm now one level higher in my life, but I am not reactive in ways that are destructive. Things are going well. So I'm good. But then from I'm good, there's millions of people who are just now I'm living in their good, right? Most people are living in trauma stories. But now there's millions of people who have done so much work climbing out of their trauma story. Now they're like living in the I'm good. But is I'm good living in joy? It's not there yet. So this is why we have to practice joy. And getting to I'm good is a very intellectual experience. It's therapy, it's brain, it's cut up at the neck, it's sitting in a chair, it's reading books, it's all of that is in your brain, is in your mind, right? But to get to joy, you have to actually bring your brain and your body together. So joy is an embodied experience. It's coherence between your mind and your body. It's coming together with this idea that, wait a minute, I'm not ever going to just be able to sit in a space. I can find peace and I'm good from that space, but I'm not going to get to the place of joy if I'm not moving my body in some way, whether it's breath work or tapping or dancing or whatever it is. You want to be moving your body in order to experience joy, because joy is experiential. Joy is found inside of an experience. And then from individual joy that you get to practice every day, which is what I'm actually working on now, is we developed a first ever platform to practice joy, to get people to get to that I'm good to I'm joyful in my personal life. But then the real trick, what I'm really interested in, is going from the individual joy to the final level, which we call collective joy, right? So individual joy is felt embodied in brain body. I'm dancing, I'm moving, I'm breathing, I'm creating, I'm painting, I'm doing all the things, I'm writing my book, whatever it is. I'm doing all these things, I'm in joy. But the real place where we transform the world, where we actually experience a consciousness shift, is when we actually have the courage to move towards collective joy. So we get out of our homes, out of our discomfort, out of our fear of what it's like to connect with other people, out of our old stories of I was bullied in high school, or I was dumped by someone, or I'm not lovable, or I need to go out. Collective joy is mandatory in our lives to practice, to treasure, to create, to go after. Collective, getting together with other people, finding spaces and places and experiences to witness and experience collective joy. That's where we're really going to up-level humanity. If we can actually begin to see the need, not just the want, the actual necessity of collective joy, this is where we're more intelligent as a species. We fight disease better. We actually up level consciously. We find flow state with more ease. We are more sensorial as a collective. There's so many reasons why collective joy makes us the most top of the food chain, the most potent species on the planet, because we're able to experience collective joy. We're able to share it with one another. We're able to collaborate, cooperate in these spaces. And in these times of post-COVID where people don't realize, they're like, oh no, I'm good working from home. I don't want to go back to the office ever again. I was always going to be remote for the rest of my life. This is how it's going to be. You're missing this deeply important need of humanity to survive and thrive as a species of experiencing collective joy. And you can't get that alone behind a computer screen, on Zoom. And so we have to, as employers, as employees, as a collective, as a community, push for teams to come back together, push for the collective to return to one another, because we will never find the same level of awe and accomplishment in what we're creating. If you get an exit, if I sell my company for $300 million and I did that with a remote team, you think the joy is as high as if all of you were in office together and you got the phone call that the company was being sold, and everyone throws their computer and you're just crying and hugging and pigpiling on top of each other because life is so exciting. You can't believe that you've been in the trenches together and then now this crazy thing is happening. Like, do you think you can get that on a Zoom call? I just don't think you can. And I'm making a stand for the importance of collective joy. Science deeply backs it up.
Yeah, I mean, human touch, you can't replace that. In human connection and the energy field and the electromagnetic field that people emit individually and collectively is just a whole different thing.
And flow state, you find much more clearly. Like, you wouldn't be having this conversation, I bet you, with your team if you're all in the same room and you're experiencing flow state and you're throwing ideas on a wall and there's like a million kind of miles an hour of talking happening. There'd be a coherence that comes as a result of being in the same room. And I'm feeling that at our HQ. It's just the three of us in the office right now. And I feel the clunkiness in our communication with all of our team that works remotely, because we're not able to find, the Marines, or you have the SEALs. The SEALs are known to not even have to look at each other. They're back to back on the field, and they can read each other's energy. They know exactly where the person's going to go. They're able to fully find flow state with so much ease because they're a unit. And do you think that they can have that can ever happen if they're living in a remote environment? That just would never happen. Flow state comes when you're able to actually dance with other people's energies, and that comes creatively as well. We're much more creative when we're together.
Yeah, it's like Ubuntu, right? I am because we all are. It's the same type of philosophy. That really resonates. I wanted to share a story earlier, but you were on a roll, and I was like, I'm just going to let this keep going. So I read a story about Orville and Wilbur Wright, the Wright brothers. And when you all were talking about you're each other's cheerleaders, and then you came back, you're like, well, we cheer each other on, but if the idea is shit, we're like, the idea is shit. Like, we're just going to tell you it's not good. But the brothers, in their invention and the process, the engineers who worked with them were documenting the process. And the brothers, I forget which brother it was like a real, I don't want to say fireball, hothead, whatever, but he was like, my way or the highway. It's this, I'm the engineering and the idea of this plane, the rudder has to be fixed and it's this way. And the brother came back and he's like, no, it's this way. The rudder has to be able to move and maneuver. And they like had an all out brawl, like huge fight. And this is, one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle for them in creating this airplane. And the engineer was there that evening when they had this massive fight, and he was like, forget it. They're not coming back tomorrow. Like, there's going to be no airplane, no flight in Kitty Hawk. We're done. And sure enough, they came back in the morning. They both said, you know what? I think you're right. And the other brother said, no, I think you're right. And then they worked on each other's ideas from a place where they could actually see what they were working on, and they had to work through it passionately. And they weren't angry at each other. They were just working collectively on creating this invention authentically and with brain power, right? Like, we need each other to do this. And they decided that argument, that huge, not argument, but that flow, that heated flow state where they were really going through this like scientific explosion. If they didn't have that, we would not have our airplane today, because that's what, them coming back the next day with objectivity and saying, I'm not going to take this personally. Like, you're my brother and I love you. And that helped create what is now the airplane. And they realized that, like, without having that argument in that moment, that they would have never figured out that it was actually the rudder that needed to change. I think, like, of you all as like the female Wright brothers, like you're out there inventing and like creating experiences that are for all of us to enjoy. There would have never been a Daybreaker. There would have never been a Thinx or a Tushy or, all these things had there not been those moments of friction, which is really how biologically we're all created, which creates like, creates humanity. You need that friction to have the cellular growth in the womb. And without that friction, we wouldn't invent.
Totally. 100%. And I think, like, in my story before, like, with my team, where we're kind of back and forth on like, they have very valid reasons as to why they, don't want to put the product name on the box. In the same way, I have a very valid reason for why I do. And it's true. It's like, may the best idea win for the company. It's not like yours or my idea. It's just like what's best for the brand. And let's find a solution that works for everybody. And also making sure that we're trying not to do it from a place of saving face, and that we're really trying to challenge the status quo that needs to be challenged. And so, yeah, I think absolutely, collective solution finding is so much more exciting. It makes people feel so much better. There's definitely a sense of we did this together mentality versus like my way or the highway or your way, and then someone's upset. Yeah, there's definitely valid reasons on all sides all the time.
For sure. And to echo what Radha was saying, like, we are better together. I can't wait to get back and work with people and like kiss them and hug them and like,
Yeah, our first event in New York is on May 12th, and it's IRL and in person, and we have 200 people coming, and tickets go on sale this week, and it's kind of wild. It's been over a year since the pandemic and since we've had an in-person gathering, so to be already finally planning for an event in person, and actually we're doing hybrid events going forward, which thanks to COVID, what we did learn was that there is a level of intimacy in online events that I didn't realize existed before. So, for example, when you're dancing online on Zoom, people are inviting you into their homes, and so you see their kitchens and their bedrooms, and they've decorated their entire spaces for you, and they have lights shining everywhere. They're wearing costumes, and then you end up seeing an intimate part of their lives that you normally would never see. So it's like I get to see thousands of people's homes every single week that we do dance party. And so we're going to continue live streaming. We've done 25 episodes online over the last year. And we're going to continue throwing dance parties on live stream, but doing it as a hybrid model so people can tune in on their computers if they can't get to the event or can't buy a ticket, to be able to dance with us at the top of the World Trade Center, or dance with us at Sydney Opera House, or dance with us somewhere wild in the world, that they're experiencing a sense of awe together with us. Of course, not being there, you're missing the everything, the dimension, all of that, but you still get to participate and feel like a community, like you're in relation with, like you're part of the family online, which is why we opted to do that this time around. So I do see value in the technology that's allowed us to stay connected. I was imagining the 1920s when the last real kind of outbreak was, and nobody had phones or computers, so you're literally just stuck at home with nothing, and that would have been extremely difficult.
extremely. And it's also probably a nice gateway for people who are kind of like dipping their toe in the Daybreaker water, like, oh, like maybe I could just turn my video off and dance at home and like still do it. But, and then maybe the next time they leave their video on, and the next time you're in their city,
That's right.
they're your welcoming committee, you know?
That's right. You got it.
Yeah.
And so it's really exciting to see all these new people. Like we went from 28 cities to 1,100 cities when COVID happened, because
Wow.
all of a sudden live stream allowed us to go all around the world.
Wow.
And so, and we went from only capping our events to 1,000 to 2,000 people to we would have 10, 15, 20,000 people online dancing with us. And all this talent like Gloria Estefan and the Backstreet Boys, and we just had Chubby Checker on doing the twist over the weekend, and all these incredible talent would never have said yes to traveling to come to a community event. Yeah, Boys to Men singing "End of the Road" at Daybreaker Live. It was just wild. And yeah, and then another thing that I would share that's around so cool around community building online was we wrote a collaborative song. Like we just wrote our next anthem for Daybreaker. So Daybreaker, we have an anthem that we play at the end of every dance party, that we wrote in house with my in house team. But this post pandemic one, we ended up writing an anthem on Zoom collaboratively. We had these incredible brothers, Karen, who basically moderated and shepherded us through to find the chorus, find the lyrics, to find every aspect of the song. And 350 people wrote the lyrics together, hummed the melody together, wrote the bridges together. And so this new anthem that we're coming out with in May at our very first event is collaboratively created, and it's just very, very cool.
I can't wait to hear it.
It's called the Joy Generation, which is a really, really fun concept for the times that we're living in. We are living in a time where we need to enlist the Joy Generation.
How can we find that song?
If you go to daybreaker.com, you can sign up for our secret invitations, and when we announce the first event, we'll be sharing little teasers of that, and then we'll be playing the event after that. We'll be announcing on Spotify as well, sharing.
And it's so cool that it was collectively written in real time. It's so cool.
Stay tuned. Yeah.
Great. I can't wait to hear it. Thank you both so much for coming on to Brave Talks. It was so, so lovely to meet you both, kind of in person, virtually. And I just appreciate you making time and space for getting together. I know you're busy with businesses and families, and this conversation was so important to me, so I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It really, really is nice.
I want to send a parting gift out to all of you listeners. It's a Tibetan saying, wherever you have friends, that's your country. And wherever you receive love, that's your home. If you'd like to find Miki and Radha on social media, you can follow them at Miki Agrawal, MIKIAGRAWAL, and at love.radha, RADHA. Brave Talks is sponsored by Taja Collection Custom Candles. Taja Collection has designed a very special, really beautiful, amazing Be Pretty Brave candle for all of you listeners who want to light up a beautiful message in your home or send it as a gift to those who could use bravery and courage in their lives. You can find the candle on tajacollection.com. That's TAJA collection.com. And you can search for Be Pretty Brave, and you'll find the candle there. Brave Talks is produced by Madeleine Inskeep. Video production is by Wallace Cruz. The music is produced by my dear friend Murray Hidary with Mind Travel. A heartfelt thanks to these three who support Brave Talks with their incredible talent and gifts. If you'd like to receive my monthly thoughts and a recap of this month's Brave Talks, head on over to emilynolan.com and click subscribe. Thanks for listening.